let's talk about that, because there has been, he seems to be rolling back a little bit from his position that was reported in The Sun. He's saying what The Sun said is fake news, even though they recorded it, and he does seem to be saying it. He was critical of Theresa May, he was critical of her ideas for Brexit, and he did, as you say, seem to endorse Boris Johnson to take over her job, and did it again in the press conference today.
It's very strange behaviour, but behind it seems to me something quite serious, and that is the question of trade relations in the future. This is a president who has unilaterally imposed tariffs on aluminium and steel, therefore very damaging to our industries as well as those of many other countries, and at the same time saying that he is prepared to do trade deals on his terms with Britain. And my concern is that Theresa May has been discussing trade with him. She's at the same time said that we would keep the regulatory environment we have with Europe, which we all want to do. He doesn't want that. He's made that very, very clear. Are we going to remove our food standards and import chlorinated chicken and GM crops to this country? Or are we actually going to say, well, yes, we'll do trade with a lot of people around the world, but it's based on high quality standards and based on human rights in the countries we're trading with?
There you go, Jeremy Corbyn registering his opposition to Donald Trump. Plenty of opposition politicians, as we look at the Coldstream Guards lining up in the quadrangle at the Windsor Palace, but plenty of opposition politicians have expressed their dismay that he's getting the royal treatment this afternoon, that he'll be meeting the Queen. All of them believe that you have to engage and talk to a president, and it's much better talking to people than excluding them. But this is an element of the visit that some people were opposed to, him meeting the Queen. The Queen will not be opposed to this, because she's done this all through her reign, of course, as the constitutional head of state, the monarch. She knows that she will be meeting all heads of state that are invited by the UK government. She affords them all the same respect, whoever they are, whether it's President Xi of China, King Abdullah, who was here, Yoweri Museveni of Uganda, who came here with a questionable human rights record, leaders of Kazakhstan. You can go on and on through her reign. There are difficult people that she has met, but that's what she does as the head of state, of course, and it will be no different on this occasion. We've focused a lot on the protests today, but there have been a number of supporters who've come here to Windsor Castle as well. In fact, we can see in the crowds this afternoon one or two flags, Make America Great Again, Stars and Stripes, are flying as well. On the opposite side of the road where we're standing from the protest, it almost set up two camps here at King Henry VIII's gate. But what a spectacular sight we're looking at there. The Coldstream Guards just lining up, waiting for an inspection. And Donald Trump will walk down the line, down the front rank of the guards when he arrives there in the presence of the Queen. And it will be the captain of the guard, Major Oliver Biggs, who will be escorting them down the line. Aside from their duties, of course, their military duties, they also have a duty to protect the royal palaces, not just Windsor Castle, but also Buckingham Palace as well. In fact, let's bring in Nick Witchell, our royal correspondent, who's just joined us here at our spot. Welcome to you. We were saying that this is very much the moment of the trip that Donald Trump would be looking forward to.
It's the moment, I'm sure, that he hopes will project the images which will catch the imagination of the American television audiences. It has the setting, Windsor Castle, it has the guardsmen, although we saw them also, of course, at Blenheim Palace last night, but most importantly of all, it has Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth. And he is said to have a great reverence for her, which he's inherited from his mother. Now, she, of course, over the 66 years of her reign, she is well used to taking everything and everyone in her stride, and we shouldn't forget that no one has more experience at meeting American presidents than the Queen. I mean, she has met 11 of the 12 predecessors in the White House to Donald Trump throughout her reign. The only American president who she didn't meet was Lyndon Johnson back in the 1960s. But I think that even for someone who has met so many American presidents and so many other leading figures, I think that she will be, well, more than usually curious to just see, well, what is this man like, actually, you know, when you come face to face with him. He's not going to be here terribly long, just 1 hour. It is tea just with the Queen, no other members of the royal family there, no Duke of Edinburgh on this occasion. I remember when the Obamas came in 2011, the Duke of Edinburgh, at the age of 94, actually drove them from the helicopter landing site into the castle, which I think gave the Secret Service a few headaches, but nothing like that happening today. So Donald Trump will be here, well, in about, 5 or 10 minutes. If he's
she would never be so indiscreet as to say which was her favourite of the 10 presidents that she's met, but the only one that has stayed here is, of course, Ronald Reagan.
Well, Ronald Reagan stayed here, and I would imagine that he would be, if one were ever to learn who would have been the favourites amongst the 11 whom she's met, I would imagine that Ronald Reagan would be well up there, partly because he was just very charming, and also, of course, the key ingredient, he was keen on horses.
Yeah.
And so they went riding in Windsor Great Park and all that.
Those are great pictures, actually. We've been looking at them today of the Queen, and a very younger Queen, of course, with Ronald Reagan riding through the grounds.
Yeah, back in the 1980s. I'll have to look at my notes for that. 1982. Yeah, 1982.
Yeah.
There we are.
She, the next year, went to Santa Barbara to his ranch, so there clearly was an affinity.
Yeah, no, there absolutely was. I mean, she got caught in a terrible thunderstorm and only just made it up to the ranch. There was torrential rain there, but so keen was she to actually go back and see him further. The other president who I think, that she really got on with, actually, was Barack Obama, or Barack Obama and Michelle Obama. I think there was a real rapport there. The state visit in 2011 that the Obamas paid to this country. And of course, the remarkable thing is that there have been so few state visits by American presidents. I mean, for years, they just didn't want to know about state visits because I think they didn't fancy dressing up in white tie and tails and all that sort of thing. So it wasn't until George W. Bush actually came on a state visit in 2003 that an
So we now wait for the moment when we will finally see the Queen.
And that moment is now.
There she is.
Escorted by the Comptroller of the Lord Chamberlain's Office, Lieutenant Colonel Sir Andrew Ford. Her Majesty will go to the dais and there she will wait. The Comptroller of the Lord Chamberlain's Office is responsible for organising all state ceremonial and for making sure that the Queen's ceremonial calendar is always kept as it should be. The field officer of the gate waiting on one side and the colonel of the foot guards on the other waiting for the arrival of the President. And the music goes on and the national anthem for Her Majesty.
That man is. Stand easy.
With the national anthem over, the guardsmen, under the command of their officers, have sloped arms and the state colour has been recovered. This is an enormous colour. It's only brought out on particularly special occasions like state openings of Parliament or state visits of this kind, although this is an official visit with ceremonial elements. And we see the footmen have been put into position for the car when it arrives, and the Major General commanding the Household Division has been to salute Her Majesty the Queen. He's responsible for making sure that this delivery by the Coldstream Guards is perfect. And the ceremonial goes on as we wait for the President to arrive. There's always that little bit of a wait at state visits in London, when the Queen waits on horse guards for the arrival of any visitors. It always seems to be quite a long time that the Queen waits there, but it's very important to be ready for your guest when they arrive. And the Queen knows that upstairs a good cup of tea is waiting.
The helicopter land, Alistair, and what will happen? He will come to Her Majesty, she will go to him. How does that work?
The helicopter will land out in the home park, and cars are ready to pick up the President and bring him here. He'll come up the last part of the long walk and into the quadrangle. Anybody who's been to Windsor knows that long walk, and we remember it from the royal wedding, that incredibly long straight road that goes from a huge equestrian statue of King George III, quite interesting when you think of the history of the United States, and all the way up to the main entrance, or the George IV entrance to the castle. And that's off to the left of that picture and directly opposite the state entrance, which is that large bulk of almost solid tower-like entrance to the right of the picture behind the garden, and the Royal Standard fluttering over the well-known appearance of Windsor Castle with its